Hello, and welcome to Wrestling with Poetry, Kalamazoo, Michigan's premier wrestling and poetry podcast. Today, we'll hear from the great poet and artist Corwin Ericson, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the masked marvels of wrestling. First, let's hear from Corwin Ericson. Corwin Ericson lives in Western Massachusetts. He's the author of the novel Swell and Checked Out OK, a book-length found poem in the form of police reports. Much of what he knows about wrestling comes from the 1951 Bugs Bunny cartoon Bunny Hug. He first encountered this cartoon in book form in the Big Little Book, The Masked Marvel, which he read often when visiting his grandparents' house. Let's take a listen.
Rendering. As she receded into the white space, my mother yelled, "Hurry up." She was thousands of cells in front of me. I was trapped in the zoetrope. My childhood ended then and started right up again. "Mom, wait, I am crawling panel by panel, but my knees have been erased." No matter my bongoing footfalls, I could not keep up. I found speech balloons I knew were hers, gone wordless, floating just inches from the ground. "Mom, wait, I am misdrawn. Mom, your stipples are dispersing, and I can't pick them up with my fat white gloves." Among my thought clouds is one of hers. "I never liked cartoons," said my mother. "I was only ever one for you."
Thank you, Corwin. That was marvelous. And I'm not going to let go of this Marvel theme because there have been a number of wrestlers called the Masked Marvel, and I wish to talk a little bit about a few of those that I have found out about. Overview. The wrestlers. Okay, more than one wrestler has been known as the Masked Marvel, not surprising. There was Corbin James Massey, 1903 to 1979, who is credited with starting the masked wrestling tradition in Mexico. What? Yes, that surprised me. For some reason, I thought it was an ancient tradition, but nope. According to Wikipedia, it was started by Corbin, who wrestled in Mexico from 1933 to 1936. His ring name was La Maravilla Enmascarado, the Masked Marvel in Spanish. And Corbin was not the first wrestler named Masked Marvel, but I can't find any internet accounts of the very earliest ones, though supposedly it started in France. Masked wrestling in Mexico was a huge hit, and not only survives to this day, but it's a major feature of the lucha libre wrestling. Almost every wrestler in Mexico starts out with a mask. I'm not exactly sure why, but I would say my reasoning would be, start with a mask, and the better you get at wrestling, you'll be able to remove your mask. So, there's not much online about Corbin, other than his other wrestling names, which were Cyclone Mackey, the Gray Mask, Mr. X, Mask Mackey, and the Yellow Mask. I did see a picture of him on a vintage wrestling Facebook page. He is wearing a mask, and it's worth noting that it looked like a full-face ski mask, but it had the nose cut out. It looked menacing rather than impressive. My sources for this are Wikipedia, Cyclone Mackey. Another masked marvel was the South African Nazi Johannes van der Walt, who was hugely popular in his day, but like I said, was an ultra-nationalist who engaged in terrorism and espoused ideas of racial purity that led to his arrest because he engaged in violence. He died of a gunshot wound in 1942 in a farmhouse in Krugersdorp, South Africa. When you read this man's Wikipedia page, the fact that he is a criminal and a fascist is totally unclear. They really obscure that, though it does indicate that he was close to Hendrik French Verwoerd, who is an architect of South African apartheid. Yes, it's strange. Johannes is depicted as a hero of sport, though he was a stormtrooper in something called the Osowa Brandwag, or the Oxcart Sentinel, which was a fascist and nationalist movement. I found about him through Patrick Reed's blog. That's Reed, W-R-E-E-D, Patrick. He does deep dives into the history of wrestling, and you can check this article out. Patrick Reed, PatrickWreed.com blog, The Masked Marvel Unmasked, the story of Johannes van der Walt, maybe the worst person in wrestling history. There are a lot of bad eggs in wrestling history, like there are in the history of the world. So that is what happens when you turn over the marvelous masked rocks. You find a lot of creatures crawling underneath, and it's gross. But in contrast to Johannes, the garbage can masked marvel, there was John Joseph Bonico, who also wrestled under the name the Masked Marvel. He only wrestled for a little while to get himself through college and medical school, and he did well. He wrestled Ed the Strangler Lewis, and he stayed in the ring with Lou Thez for an hour. That's crazy. Lou Thez is like a monster wrestler. He's a technician, and he wrestled stiff, so that's really saying something. And he won the Canadian Light Heavyweight Wrestling Championship in 1939, and in 1941 became the National Wrestling Association's World Champion in Light Heavyweight division. He would later become a famous anesthesiologist, possibly as a result of his being in constant pain from having wrestled so much and so well. In fact, he contributed significantly to the field of medical pain management before his death at the age of 77 in 1994. Okay, one final wrestler that I will speak of, who also took on the name or the mantle of Masked Marvel. He's still alive today, and his actual name is Luke Poirier. He's a Canadian, and he began wrestling at the age of 20 in 1982. He began as a face with the title The Masked Marvel, but he turned heel and changed his name to The Mercenary. He wrestled with the Catch Wrestling Association and with the WWF when it was the WWF, that's World Wrestling Federation, which is now World Wrestling Entertainment. And after retiring, he became a registered nurse, which I think is super cool. He's a member of the European Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I salute you, Luke Poirier. You did well. You can find out more about him on his Wikipedia page for Luke Poirier, L-U-C-P-O-I-R-I-E-R. Events. This week, Thursday, January 11th, there will be an open mic at Satellite Records. That's Thursday, January 11th at 5:30 p.m. The location is 808 South West Nedge Avenue, and that's in Kalamazoo, and as I say, it's 5:30 p.m. Additionally, Independent Pro Wrestling will be performing their New Year's resolution. That's resolution, but they've incorporated the word wrestle there, so it's like New Year's resolution in Grand Rapids on January 21st, not that far away. They say that Jeremiah Goldmain will be there, and he's a really good heel, folks. If you want to study heels, he's great at what he does. And this is going to be at the Patterson Ice Center, which is 2550 Patterson Avenue in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The doors will open at 5 p.m. and the wrestling begins at 6 p.m. Got a question or concern? Why not email it to us at Wrestling with Poetry, and I will read your question or concern on the air, and I will do my best to address it reasonably. Okay. Well, there you have it. Another episode of Wrestling with Poetry. Thank you, Corwin Ericson, for sharing your marvelous work, and thank you who are listening. Hopefully we'll meet together again on the airwaves soon.